So, thank you. Now, I'd like to invite Attorney General Peter Neronha, to the podium to discuss the fantastic work that they're doing with regarding protecting voter rights. And give me one sec. Now we have to give allowances for mask placing. Go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thanks for your great work. It has really been a privilege to work with the Secretary and the Board of Elections, among others, this year in what is a highly unusual election cycle, as all of us know, because of the pandemic and really not much more than that. So to that end, and the purpose of me being here today is to really emphasize just a couple things, that this right to vote in our country is sacred. It is something all of us possess as an individual citizen of this country. We all have a right to vote securely, privately, and to vote for whomever we choose. And so the principal role of my office at this point in time is to make sure that voters are reminded of that right, that there aren't artificial barriers put up to prevent them from exercising that right. And when those rights are implicated, that they have somewhere to go. And there's a lot of overlap here. You know, there certainly a voter or a poll worker or a member of the Board of Canvassers could reach out to the Secretary or could reach out to the Board of Elections or could reach out to my office. That's by design. It's not to cause confusion. It's by design, so that everyone who has a concern can have that concern heard and remedied. What I want to principally focus on today is voter intimidation. I honestly don't expect there to be significant incidents of voter intimidation in this cycle at all. You know, I voted now for a number of years. I know this year is different, but I've seen my fellow Rhode Islanders vote, and I've been in office as U.S. Attorney during some elections as well, and that really has not been an issue here. But it's important that we be prepared for that issue, and to intimidate a voter into not voting at all, or to voting differently, or to influence that vote, or to try to record that vote, is a crime in Rhode Island. In some instances it's a felony, and in some instances it's a misdemeanor. And so we take those rights very, very seriously. And so if there are allegations of voter intimidation, we want to know about it. There are ways to reach the office. On Election Day, that phone number is 401-243-2355. Anytime between now and Election Day, we can be reached at voting@riag.ri.gov, because as we all know, voting is happening now. I voted last week. The last thing I want to say is that it could not have been more seamless to vote last week. You know, tremendous shout out to boards of canvassers and the Board of Elections for getting our voting apparatus up early and in such a smooth fashion. It felt like voting on a typical election day for me, and so I would commend that process to Rhode Island voters who would choose to take advantage of it. And so I'll leave it there. I'm happy to take any questions. If not, thank you for having me today, Madam Secretary.
Attorney General, who is allowed in and around the polling places on Election Day, and where, how close can they be?
Yeah, so there are, you know, somebody pointed out to me in my office yesterday, the rules and regulations that apply to elections is about 1.5 inches thick, and I think the Board of Elections can kind of answer some specific questions. So how would this work? So the Board of Canvassers are trained. The Board of Elections trains them. We've actually had some interfacing with the Board of Elections this year about training on things like signature comparison, for example. So they have a lot of training as to what those rules and regulations are. So, for example, I know just from running myself that you can only get as a candidate so close to a polling place. You know, there's a chalk line which works better on dry days than it does on rainy days. But for instances like that, and you know, I suspect it will play out something like this. You know, someone from the Board of Canvassers would say, tell a candidate, you're too close, back up. If there were recurring problems, they might take other steps. They might reach out to the Board of Elections. They might reach out to my office. They might reach out, you know, I think in circumstances where I'm thinking more in the context of true voter intimidation, sort of shouting at somebody, getting in someone's face, trying to photograph a license plate or something, then a call to the local police in the first instance might be appropriate. And I think that's a point to emphasize, too. If there's truly an issue of safety, then the people to call are your local police department, because first responders, they'll be there quickly. And I know that police departments around the state are prepared for those calls.
We've heard that there are candidates who plan to have large numbers of poll observers or lawyers at polling places or places where votes are counted. All of that is permissible?
Well, yeah, sure. So the question is, Steve asked whether, says he's his understanding that there may be candidates who have lots of observers or lawyers at the polls. There are rules that sort of apply for anybody as a member of the public to sort of observe our elections, and there's a place for that for media and everyday people. Again, I'll defer to the board on that. There's a place, though, where that crosses over the line, where you're trying to prevent someone from voting or exercising their vote, or confronting someone and telling them that they don't have the right to vote for whatever reason. And it's when it flips over into that intimidating conduct, that's where, I would say that our office should be involved, along with the Board of Elections. The statutes that cover voter intimidation in Rhode Island are not, have not been used much in the past. That's a theme that's come up elsewhere in other contexts recently. The fact of the matter is that those statutes exist for a reason, and we're prepared to enforce them.
Are you prepared on election day to enforce them, or after the fact?
No, on election day. We'll have a team at the office the question was, will be available on election day. Yes, there's a team in my office that will be available to local police, local law enforcement, the secretary, if she should need us, the Board of Elections, to respond both civilly and criminally if necessary, should a significant problem arise. Again, I don't anticipate that. We had a similar hotline when I was U.S. Attorney. I don't think it really ever got called, except by the media, but we'll be there this year in case that happens.
Wasn't one different thing this year that the President said urged supporters to go out and watch the polls? Do you have any concerns about what the President has said, and are you doing anything different this year?
Look, we're paying close attention this year, Ed. We'll see. I have a lot of confidence in my fellow Rhode Islanders, regardless of their political stripe, to respect the rights of others. We're prepared when people don't do that. Certainly, I don't think it's helpful to sort of encourage behavior that would intimidate another person into voting one way or another, or not voting at all. But look, my job is to execute this office objectively and fairly, and we'll take these matters on as they come into the office.
Can someone in Rhode Island who wants to observe at the polls, could they be armed? I know we have very open carry laws and
Yeah.
in some other states. Is that something that could actually happen and happen legally?
Well, the question is about carrying firearms at a polling place. So the same rules that apply to carrying firearms on any other context apply on election day. So if you have a concealed carry permit, then you can carry your weapon concealed or open, for that matter, if it's a permit that's issued by my office. But where the line is crossed, Katie, is where that weapon is used to intimidate someone. People have a right under the state, if they have a concealed carry permit, to carry their weapon. And so they can carry that on election day like they can on any other, but they have to follow the law while they're doing it.
And just to follow up, I think you said earlier you'd be watching if people are recording votes, if I heard you correctly. You could expand on what you mean by recording votes, exit polling, or...
No, what I mean is when I'm in the booth and trying to fill out my little dots, that someone is sort of loitering or hanging out in that, so in other words, I voted. And I just decide to stick around for another 30 seconds to see how you voted. That's what I mean. I'm not talking about sort of observing the voting process or, if you're a member of the news media, filming people in and out of line. I think that's a great role for the media to have. I'm really talking about, when you go into that booth and you vote, remember in the old days, some of you will remember, you would, the curtain would close behind you, you'd yank the arm and it would open again. Well, you were truly in an enclosed space then. We have a great system now, but it's not quite as enclosed. So that's really what I'm talking about. And I think that's something, again, you could ask the Board of Elections, but if you're asking, if you're on the Board of Canvassers, you're working in a polling station, someone's just kind of hanging around. You want to get them out of there so that the people who are voting feel comfortable while they're doing that. That's what I meant by that.
That's not permissible.
Yeah, that's correct. Once you voted, it's your time to get out of the way and let somebody else vote. Don't want to make the lines longer than they are otherwise. Not that we've had long lines. Any other questions?